He had only hours his daughter was gone, and the kidnappers had no idea they picked the wrong father. People often believe that when a man reaches 65, life finally slows down, that he lets go of the past and settles into something quiet, something peaceful. But for him, peace was never part of the plan. His name is Daniel Carter, a 65-year-old retired military officer. His house sits at the end of a quiet suburban street, the kind of place where mornings are filled with nothing but birdsong and the soft rustle of wind through aging trees. No voices, no laughter, no one waiting for him to come home. Just silence and memories that refuse to fade. Inside his living room, the walls tell a story he never speaks out loud. Old medals, neatly arranged. Framed photographs, their colors fading with time. In one of them, Daniel stands beside a little girl, no older than 6, grinning with pure, effortless joy. That girl is his daughter, Emily Carter. But if you asked Emily about her father, she'd probably hesitate for a moment, then shrug and say, he was never really around. When Emily was growing up, Daniel was always deployed. Missions that lasted months, sometimes longer. Entire seasons of her life passed without him. He missed her first day of school, missed her birthday parties, missed the nights she cried herself to sleep, wishing someone would sit beside her and tell her everything was going to be okay. And every time he came back, he brought gifts, toys, clothes, souvenirs from places she couldn't even pronounce. But the one thing he never managed to bring home was time. And over the years, something shifted. The distance between them stopped being measured in miles. It became something deeper, colder, emotional. Emily grew up learning how to rely on herself. She made her own decisions, kept her thoughts to herself, built a life that didn't include asking her father for anything. Not advice, not comfort, not even attention. And Daniel, he didn't know how to fix that. After retiring from the military, for the first time in his life, he had something he never had before. Time. Too much of it. He wakes up early every morning, out of habit, makes his bed with sharp, practiced precision, drinks black coffee in silence. His routine still mirrors the discipline of the military. Except for one thing. No one calls him sir anymore. And no one calls him dad. Some nights, he finds himself standing outside Emily's bedroom door, his hand hovering just inches from the wood, thinking about knocking, thinking about saying something, anything, that could bridge the gap between them. But the words never come. And maybe worse, he's not sure she wants to hear them. So instead, he stands there quietly, watching through the small crack in the door. He sees the soft glow of her phone lighting up her face. Hears her laughter, light, carefree, alive. But it's not for him. It's for people he's never met, names he's never heard, voices coming from a world he doesn't understand. And deep inside him, something begins to stir, a feeling he hasn't felt since his days in uniform. Not fear, not anger, instinct. The kind of instinct that kept him alive in places where one wrong move meant death. A quiet, unshakable voice in the back of his mind, telling him, something isn't right. Emily Carter had built a life that didn't need her father. At least, that's what it looked like from the outside. Most evenings, her bedroom door stayed closed. Behind it, her world was alive, bright, fast, and constantly moving. The soft glow of her phone lit up her face as she scrolled, typed, laughed, connected to people far beyond the quiet street she lived on. People who understood her. Or at least, that's what she believed. Daniel noticed the changes long before he understood them. The late nights, the constant texting, the way she smiled at her screen, but barely spoke a word at the dinner table. Sometimes he would try. You're home late, he'd say, his voice calm but firm. Emily wouldn't even look up. I told you, I was out with friends. What friends? A pause. Just a second too long. Just people I know. That answer never sat right with him. Daniel had spent decades reading people, learning to spot lies, hesitation, danger hidden behind ordinary words. It was a skill you didn't lose, even after retirement. And lately, every instinct he had was quietly screaming at him. Something wasn't right. One night, he found her sitting on the couch, headphones in, smiling at her phone again. He stood there for a moment, watching. You've been talking to them a lot, he said. Emily pulled one earbud out, slightly annoyed. Talking to who? Those people. The ones you met online. Her expression shifted instantly, defensive. They're not those people. They're my friends. Daniel stepped closer, his tone steady but sharper now. You don't know them. I know them better than you think. No, he said firmly. You know what they choose to show you. Emily let out a frustrated laugh, shaking her head. You don't get it, do you? Then explain it to me. You wouldn't understand, she snapped. You were never even here. The words hit harder than anything else. For a moment, Daniel said nothing. Because deep down, he knew she wasn't entirely wrong. But that didn't mean she was safe. You're meeting them, aren't you? He asked quietly. Emily hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. But that was enough. It's not a big deal, she said quickly. We're just hanging out. Where? Downtown. With how many people? A few. What are their names? Why does it matter? Because it matters, Daniel said, his voice rising slightly. You're meeting strangers from the internet, Emily. They're not strangers. You don't know that. I do, she shot back. You're just being paranoid. Daniel took a breath, trying to steady himself. This wasn't a battlefield. He couldn't control this situation the way he used to. He couldn't issue orders and expect obedience. But the feeling in his gut, it wouldn't go away. You're not going, he said finally. Silence. Emily stared at him, disbelief turning into anger. You don't get to control me. I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to protect you. I don't need your protection. Her voice was cold now, distant. I've been fine my whole life without it. That one sentence cut deeper than anything else she'd said. Daniel felt it, but he didn't show it. Instead, he stepped back slightly, his face hardening. You're not going, he repeated. Emily stood up. You don't get to decide that. Yes, I do. Not like this. She grabbed her jacket from the chair. I'm going. Emily, you don't trust me, she said, her voice shaking, not with fear, but with frustration. You never even tried to know me. And now suddenly you care. That's not. You don't get to show up now and act like a father. The room went quiet. Heavy. Then she turned and walked toward the door. Daniel didn't move at first. He'd faced armed men. Life or death situations. Decisions that had to be made in seconds. But this felt harder. Emily, he said one last time. She stopped, but didn't turn around. If something feels off, you leave. Immediately. Do you understand me? She rolled her eyes slightly. I'll be fine. And with that, she walked out. The door shut behind her with a quiet click. But to Daniel, it sounded like something much louder. Something final. He stood there in the silence, staring at the door. Every instinct in his body was on edge now. Not fear. Not yet. But something close. The kind of feeling that creeps in just before everything goes wrong. And deep down, he knew. This wasn't just a bad decision. This was the beginning of something he might not be able to stop. The moment the door closed behind Emily, the house felt different. Too quiet. Daniel stood still for a few seconds, staring at the empty space where she had just been. The silence pressed in on him, heavier than usual, like the air before a storm. He exhaled slowly, forcing himself to think. Emotion wouldn't help. It never did. He moved. First, he walked to the window and pulled the curtain slightly aside. Outside, he saw Emily crossing the street, her phone already in her hand, her attention pulled back into that glowing world that had been taking her further away from him every day. A car pulled up at the corner. Dark, tinted windows. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Emily hesitated for half a second, then opened the passenger door and got in. The car drove off. And just like that, she was gone. Daniel let the curtain fall back into place. Something in his chest tightened. Not panic. Not yet. But the clock had started. He turned immediately, walking with purpose toward the small desk in the corner of the room. The same desk he used for bills, and the same place he kept things from his past he never thought he'd need again. Until now. He opened the drawer. Inside was an old phone, military issued, modified years ago. He hadn't used it in a long time. Not since retirement. He turned it on. The screen flickered, then came to life. While it booted up, Daniel replayed everything in his head. The hesitation in her voice. The defensiveness. The lack of details. And that car. No greetings. No introductions. No faces. Just a pickup. That wasn't normal. His instincts sharpened. This wasn't just a teenage mistake. This felt organized. He grabbed his jacket and moved quickly toward the front door, slipping on his boots with practiced efficiency. His body, even at 65, responded like it always had. Fast, precise, controlled. Years of training didn't disappear. They waited. And tonight, they were wide awake. Outside, the air was cool, the street dimly lit by flickering lamps. Daniel stepped onto the sidewalk and scanned the area. No witnesses. No one paying attention. He walked to the corner where the car had picked her up. Kneeling slightly, he studied the ground. Most people would see nothing. But Daniel wasn't most people. Tire marks. Fresh. He traced them with his eyes, noting the width, the angle, the slight wear pattern on the edges. SUV. Midsize. Not brand new. He stood up slowly, looking down the street where it had disappeared. Then his phone buzzed in his hand. It had powered on. He opened a tracking app, one he had quietly installed on Emily's phone months ago. Not out of control, but out of caution. A habit he never admitted. For a second, nothing loaded. Then, a blinking dot appeared. Active. Moving. Daniel's jaw tightened. Good, he muttered under his breath. At least she still had her phone. He got into his truck, a worn but reliable vehicle, and started the engine. It roared to life, familiar and steady. He placed the phone on the dashboard, eyes locked on the moving signal. The dot was heading downtown, but not toward the main areas. It was drifting off-route, away from crowded streets, into darker zones. Daniel's grip tightened on the steering wheel. That wasn't where teenagers went to hang out. That was where people avoided going. He pulled out of the street, keeping his speed controlled, his movements deliberate. No rushing. No mistakes. He followed the signal, turning street after street, watching as the city lights grew dimmer, the buildings older, more abandoned. His breathing stayed steady. But inside, everything was sharpening. Every sense. Every instinct. This was no longer just a father worrying. This was a soldier tracking a potential threat. The dot slowed, then stopped. Daniel slowed his truck, parking a block away, cutting the engine immediately. Silence. He reached for the phone again, confirming the location. An old warehouse district. Half the buildings boarded up. Minimal traffic. No foot movement. Perfect place. If you didn't want to be seen. Daniel looked up slowly, scanning the area. And then, he saw it. The same SUV. Parked near a rusted metal building, its lights off, blending into the shadows. Daniel didn't move. Didn't rush. He just watched. Seconds passed. Then a minute. Then, the passenger door opened. Emily stepped out. She looked around briefly, uncertain. That was the first sign. She wasn't comfortable. Daniel's heart dropped slightly, but his face stayed cold, focused. Then 3 figures stepped out from the other side of the vehicle. Not teenagers. Men. Older. Their movements were calm. Too calm. One of them gestured toward the building. Emily hesitated. Just for a second. Then, she followed them. The door shut behind them, and the world went quiet again. Daniel sat there in the darkness, staring at the building. Every instinct inside him now screaming the same thing. Too late. He whispered under his breath. Damn it. Then his eyes hardened. Because this wasn't over. Not even close. This was just the moment. Everything changed. Daniel didn't move right away. From the outside, it might have looked like hesitation, like fear. But it wasn't. It was calculation. Inside the truck, everything went still. The engine was off. The street was silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath as Daniel watched the rusted warehouse doors slowly swing shut behind Emily. Gone. No struggle. No scream. No resistance. And somehow, that made it worse. Because people don't walk calmly into danger unless they don't recognize it. Daniel leaned back slightly, his eyes never leaving the building. 3 men. 1 vehicle. Isolated location. His mind began breaking it down automatically, like it had done hundreds of times before. Entry points. Exit routes. Blind spots. Timing. But something didn't add up. If this were just a casual meetup, why here? Why a dead industrial zone? Why men that age? His jaw tightened. This wasn't random. This was planned. He reached for his phone again, pulling up the signal. Emily's location was still active, but now it wasn't moving. Stationary. Inside, Daniel glanced at the warehouse again. Old structure. Likely multiple rooms. Possibly a basement. Limited visibility from outside. Bad. Very bad. He exhaled slowly, steadying his breathing. Charging in blindly would be a mistake. And mistakes get people killed. He opened the glove compartment and pulled out a small flashlight, along with a worn leather pouch. Inside it, simple tools. Nothing flashy. Nothing illegal. Just things a man like him knew how to use. He checked them quickly, then paused. His eyes shifted back to the building. Something flickered in one of the broken windows. Light. Movement. Daniel froze. Then, Faintly, he saw a shadow pass across the glass. Not one, multiple. His instincts sharpened instantly. That wasn't a friendly gathering. That was controlled movement. Organized. He leaned forward slightly, narrowing his eyes. And then, his phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. Daniel's body tensed. He opened it. A single line. Don't come closer. For a moment, everything inside him went cold. They knew. His gaze snapped back to the warehouse. Light still dim. No visible movement outside. But inside, they were aware. Which meant one thing. This wasn't just a random group. This was a network. Daniel's grip tightened around the phone. He didn't respond. Didn't react. Because reacting meant giving them something. And he never gave anything away. Instead, he turned off the screen slowly, letting the darkness settle again. Then he reached for the rearview mirror, adjusting it slightly. Scanning. Checking. No headlights approaching. No footsteps. No second vehicle. But that message. That meant eyes. Somewhere. Watching. Daniel stepped out of the truck quietly, closing the door without a sound. His boots hit the pavement softly as he moved into the shadows, staying low, controlled, deliberate. Every step measured. Every movement silent. He didn't head straight for the front. That's where amateurs go. Instead, he circled, keeping distance, using darkness, letting his eyes adjust. The backside of the warehouse was worse. Broken fencing, scattered debris, a partially collapsed loading dock. But also, less visibility, less protection. Daniel crouched near the edge of the structure, studying it. One door, half open, not locked. That wasn't carelessness. That was bait. He stared at it for a long moment, then slowly shook his head. No, he whispered under his breath. Too obvious. He shifted his position slightly, scanning higher. Windows. Most shattered. One intact, but dirty, fogged, difficult to see through. Daniel moved closer, staying tight against the wall, avoiding open angles. When he reached the window, he paused. Listened. At first nothing. Then, a sound. Muffled. Faint. A voice. Female. His heart dropped. Emily. He leaned slightly, just enough to see through the grime. Inside, a dim room. Concrete walls. No furniture except a single chair. And Emily, sitting. Her hands, bound. Daniel's entire body went still. Every muscle locked. Every instinct ignited. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a bad decision. This was exactly what he feared. A setup. A trap. And his daughter was already inside it. Then one of the men stepped into view. Calm. Smiling slightly. Holding a phone. The same phone. He lifted it, as if showing it to someone. Daniel. And then, the man looked directly toward the window. Toward him. And smiled. Daniel didn't flinch. Didn't move. But inside, something changed. Completely. The father stepped back. And something far more dangerous took his place. He whispered, barely audible. You picked the wrong girl. A beat. Then colder. And the wrong father. Daniel didn't rush in. Every instinct in his body was screaming at him to break the window, storm the room, take them down one by one. But instinct without control gets people killed. And Daniel Carter had buried too many men who moved too fast. He stepped back from the window, disappearing into the shadows as if he had never been there. His breathing slowed. His pulse steadied. The father inside him was burning. But the soldier was in control. He crouched behind a rusted steel beam, eyes locked on the building, replaying everything he had just seen. Emily, bound, alive, at least for now. 3 men confirmed, possibly more inside. One already knew he was here, which meant the situation had shifted. This wasn't a rescue anymore. This was a hostile operation. Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone again, but this time, not the tracking app. Contacts. Names he hadn't called in years. Men who owed him favors. Men who understood what situations like this meant. His thumb hovered over one name, then stopped. No. Too slow. Too loud. By the time backup arrived, it could already be over. He locked the phone and slipped it back into his pocket. This was on him, just like the old days. He looked down at his hands, steady, controlled, scarred from years of work and war. 65 years old. And yet, not done. Not even close. A faint noise echoed from inside the building. A thud, then a voice. Muffled, but sharper now. Daniel shifted position slightly, moving along the outer wall toward another broken section, careful to stay out of sight lines. Every step silent. every movement intentional. He found a second vantage point, a narrow crack between metal panels. From there, he could see more. Emily was still in the chair, but now, one of the men stood directly in front of her, leaning in, talking. Daniel couldn't hear every word, but he didn't need to. He recognized the tone. Control, pressure, manipulation. The man crouched slightly, bringing his face level with hers, smiling, like this was a game, like she was already his. Daniel's jaw tightened. His vision narrowed, focus sharpening to a single point. Then, Emily spoke. Her voice trembled, but the words came through clearer this time. I don't have anything. I told you. The man laughed softly. Oh, you do. You just don't realize it yet. Daniel's mind clicked instantly. This wasn't random. They didn't grab her by accident. They targeted her, which meant they knew who she was. Or more importantly, who her father was. His stomach dropped. This wasn't just trafficking. This was leverage. A setup designed for something bigger. The man stood up slowly, pulling out his phone again. Same one. He tapped the screen, then turned it outward, showing Emily something. Her reaction was immediate. Confusion, then fear, then recognition. No, that's not. Daniel leaned slightly, straining to see. The screen wasn't visible from his angle, but whatever it was, it broke her. The man tilted his head, studying her. See, he said calmly. Now you understand why you're valuable. Daniel's mind raced. Information. That's what they wanted. Or access. Or both. And Emily. She didn't even know what she was caught in. A sudden shift in movement snapped Daniel back. Another man entered the room. Fourth. Carrying something. A bag. Heavy. Dropped onto the floor with a dull thud. This was escalating. Fast. Too fast. Daniel leaned back from the crack, his thoughts moving rapidly now. For confirmed. Unknown layout. Unknown weapons. But one certainty. Time was running out. He scanned the exterior again, eyes locking onto the side entrance he had seen earlier. Half open. Still there. Still waiting. Still bait. Daniel stared at it, then looked back toward the window. Toward Emily. Her head was lowered now, shoulders shaking slightly. Fear had taken over. And that was the moment everything changed. Because fear meant she would hesitate. And hesitation gets people killed. Daniel closed his eyes for just a second. One breath in, one breath out. When he opened them again, there was no hesitation left in him. No doubt. No second guessing. Just clarity. Cold. Precise. Final. He reached into his jacket, tightening his grip on the small tools inside. Not weapons, but in the right hands. More than enough. He stepped away from the wall, moving toward the side entrance. Not fast. Not slow. Just right. Balanced between patience and urgency. Between control and action. Because this was it. No backup. No second chances. Just him. Against whatever waited inside. He stopped just before the door. Listening. Counting. Timing. Then, under his breath, almost like a promise. Hold on, Emily. A beat. His hand moved to the edge of the door. I'm coming. Daniel didn't open the door right away. His hand rested lightly against the cold metal edge, fingers still, unmoving, but his mind was anything but. Inside, voices. For men confirmed. One target. Unknown variables. He closed his eyes for half a second, just enough to slow everything down. Then he listened. Footsteps. One moving left. One pacing. One standing still, likely watching Emily. The fourth, heavier. Near the bag. Daniel mapped it instantly. Positions. Distances. Timing. When he opened his eyes again, he moved. The door didn't creak. Didn't slam. It shifted just enough for him to slip through, silent as a shadow. Inside, the air was thick. Dust, oil, something stale. The kind of place no one would come looking. Perfect for disappearing people. Daniel stayed low, hugging the wall, letting his eyes adjust to the dim light. The room ahead was partially open, separated by rusted metal frames and broken partitions. Voices clearer now. Told you she'd be worth it, one man said. Another chuckled. As long as the old man plays along. Daniel froze. Old man. They weren't guessing anymore. They knew exactly who he was. And that meant one thing. This wasn't about Emily alone. This was about him. His jaw tightened, but his breathing stayed steady. Focus. He edged closer, stopping just before the opening. Then he looked. Emily was still tied to the chair, her face pale, eyes wide but alert now. She wasn't crying anymore. She was thinking. Good. In front of her stood the same man. Calm, controlled, the one clearly in charge. To the left, another leaned against the wall, distracted, scrolling through his phone. To the right, one paced slowly, restless. And near the bag, the fourth, watching everything. Daniel's eyes locked onto each of them, one by one. For targets. Different awareness levels. Different priorities. He didn't need weapons. He needed timing. The pacing man turned his back. 2 seconds. The one on the phone looked down. Another second. The leader leaned slightly toward Emily again. That was it. Daniel moved. Fast. Precise. Silent. Until the last possible moment. His first step carried him across the threshold. Second, closing distance. Third, impact. His hand struck the pacing man at the base of the neck. Sharp, controlled. The man dropped instantly. No sound. Before the others could react, Daniel pivoted. The one with the phone barely had time to look up before Daniel's elbow drove into his jaw. A crack. The phone hit the ground. 2 down. The leader stepped back, shocked, but not frozen. He reached into his jacket. Too slow. Daniel grabbed his wrist mid-motion, twisting hard. A snap. The man screamed. Too loud. The fourth moved instantly, faster than the others. He lunged. Daniel turned just in time to block, the impact heavy, forcing him back half a step. Stronger than expected. Trained? Maybe. The man swung again. Daniel slipped to the side, redirecting the force, driving his shoulder forward. Collision. Both staggered. The room exploded into motion. Emily gasped, pulling against the restraints. Dad, that one word. Cut through everything. Daniel's focus sharpened even further. The fourth man recovered quickly, reaching for something behind his back. A weapon. Daniel reacted instantly. He grabbed a nearby metal rod, rusted, heavy, and swung. Hard. The strike connected with the man's arm. A dull crack. The weapon clattered to the ground. The man shouted in pain, stumbling back. Daniel didn't give him time. One step forward. Another strike. This time to the side of the head. The man collapsed. Silence. Sudden. Heavy. Broken only by Emily's breathing. Daniel stood still for a moment, scanning. One unconscious. One down. One incapacitated. The leader, groaning, clutching his wrist, trying to crawl back. Daniel walked toward him slowly. Not rushed. Not angry. Controlled. The man looked up, panic now replacing confidence. You weren't supposed to. Daniel grabbed him by the collar, lifting him slightly off the ground. You picked the wrong family, he said quietly. Cold. Final. Then he dropped him. The man didn't get back up. Daniel turned immediately. To Emily. She was staring at him like she was seeing him for the first time. Not as the distant father. Not as the man who wasn't there. But as something else entirely. He moved to her quickly, kneeling, pulling out a small blade from his pouch. The restraints fell away in seconds. You okay? He asked, his voice softer now, but still steady. Emily nodded, tears forming. I didn't know. I know, he said. No blame. No anger. Just truth. A beat. Then, a distant sound. Sirens. Faint. But getting closer. Daniel's head tilted slightly. Processing. Timing. This wasn't over. Not yet. He looked back at the men on the ground. Then at Emily. We need to move, he said. Because whatever this was, it was bigger than just 4 men in a warehouse. And it was already catching up to them. The sirens grew louder. Not close enough to feel safe, but not far enough to ignore. Emily's breathing was still shaky as Daniel helped her to her feet. Her legs almost gave out the moment she stood, and she grabbed onto his arm instinctively. For the first time in years. She didn't pull away. Easy, Daniel said quietly, steadying her. You're all right. But his eyes weren't on her. They were scanning. Always scanning. The room. The exits. The men on the ground. One of them groaned. Daniel turned immediately, stepping forward and pressing his boot lightly, but firmly, against the man's shoulder, keeping him down. Stay, he said coldly. The man didn't argue. Fear had replaced whatever confidence he had earlier. Good. Daniel crouched quickly, patting him down. Pockets. Jacket. Waistband. No second weapon. But then, a phone. Daniel pulled it out. Unlocked. Careless. Or overconfident. He glanced at the screen, and his expression shifted. Messages. Multiple threads. Photos. Names. Locations. This wasn't just a small operation. This was a network. Emily watched him, still trying to catch her breath. What is it? Daniel didn't answer right away. He scrolled once, twice, then locked the screen. Later, he said, because right now, they didn't have time. The sirens were closer now. Too close. But something about it didn't sit right. Daniel stood, turning toward the broken window, listening carefully. One siren, then another, but not coordinated, not controlled. That wasn't how police moved. His instincts sharpened instantly. Those aren't for us, he muttered. Emily frowned. What do you mean? Daniel looked at her, serious now. They're not here to help. Her face paled. Then who? Before she could finish, a sound cut through the air. Engines. Multiple. Outside. Fast. Daniel's head snapped toward the entrance. Too soon. Too precise. They called it in, he said under his breath. Backup. Not law enforcement. The real network. Emily's grip tightened on his arm. Dad. This time, the word didn't surprise him, but it did something else. It grounded him. He looked at her, just for a second. You stay behind me, he said. No hesitation. No argument. She nodded immediately. Outside, tires screeched. Doors slammed. Voices. More than 4. A lot more. Daniel moved fast now, guiding Emily toward the back of the warehouse. Can we run? She whispered. Not yet. Why not? Because they expect that. He pushed open a side panel, revealing a narrow corridor. Dark, cluttered, barely visible. Escape route. Or trap. Either way, better than open ground. Stay close, he said. They moved. Quiet. Fast. Controlled. Behind them, the main door burst open. Heavy footsteps flooded the building. Shouting. Check the rooms. They're still inside. Daniel didn't look back. Didn't need to. He could hear everything. Distance. Numbers. Speed. Too many. He reached the end of the corridor, a split. Left or right. He paused for half a second. Listening. Left, echoes. Open space. Right, tight. Confined. He chose right. Here. They turned sharply, moving deeper into the structure. Emily stumbled slightly, but Daniel caught her instantly. Keep moving. I'm trying. I know. His voice softened for just a fraction of a second. Then, focus again. Behind them. Closer now. They went this way. Footsteps. Fast. Closing in. Daniel scanned ahead. A metal ladder. Leading up. Second level. Better position. Up, he said. Emily looked at it. Hesitation flickering. It's okay, he added quickly. I've got you. She nodded and climbed. Fast. Faster than he expected. Adrenaline. Good. Daniel followed, right behind her. The moment they reached the top, he turned and kicked the ladder. Hard. It shifted. Fell sideways. Crashing down just as the first man reached the bottom. Go. Daniel snapped. They moved across the upper level, rusted beams, unstable flooring, shadows everywhere. But now, they had space. Distance. A chance. Emily glanced back once, her voice shaking. Are we going to make it? Daniel didn't slow. Didn't hesitate. Yes. Not hope. Not guess. Certainty. Because now, this wasn't just survival. This was war. And Daniel Carter knew exactly how to win wars. The upper level groaned under their weight. Every step echoed through the hollow skeleton of the warehouse, metal beams creaking like they could give way at any moment. Dust fell from above with each movement, catching the dim light like smoke. Below them, voices. Angrier now. Closer. They're upstairs. Cut them off. Move. Daniel didn't look down. He didn't need to. He already knew what was happening. They were splitting up. Flanking. Trying to box them in. Smart. But not smart enough. Stay on the beams, Daniel said quickly, guiding Emily forward. Avoid the loose panels. She nodded, focusing hard now, placing her steps carefully where he stepped. No more hesitation. No more doubt. Just survival. Behind them, a loud metallic crash. One of the men had found another way up. Faster than expected. Daniel's eyes flicked to the far end of the platform. An opening. A broken section of wall. Beyond it, darkness. Possibly another exit. Possibly a dead end. No time to guess. We're heading there, he said. Emily swallowed. What if? It's better than staying here. That was enough. They pushed forward. Halfway across. A gunshot cracked through the air. The sound exploded inside the tight space, deafening. Metal sparked near Daniel's feet. Emily gasped. Move, he snapped. They broke into a run. No more careful steps. No more silence. Speed over stealth. Another shot. Closer. Daniel reached out. grabbing Emily's arm and pulling her forward just as a bullet tore through the metal railing behind them. "They're shooting." "I know." His voice was sharp, but controlled. Always controlled. They reached the broken wall. Daniel stopped just short of it, grabbing Emily and pulling her down beside him. He leaned slightly, just enough to look. Below, a drop. About 10 feet. Not fatal, but not safe either. Beyond that, an alley. Dark. Narrow. Clear path out. Behind them, footsteps. Fast. Too fast. They were seconds away. Daniel looked at Emily. No time to explain everything. Just enough. "Can you jump?" Her eyes widened slightly. You can't," he cut in. "You have to." Another gunshot. Closer. Emily flinched, then nodded. "Okay." Daniel gave a short nod. On 3. He positioned himself beside her, one hand gripping her arm. "Ready?" She took a breath. "Yeah." 1, 2. He didn't wait for 3. He pulled her, and they jumped. The impact hit hard. Emily cried out as they landed, rolling onto the rough pavement. Daniel absorbed it better, but still felt it in his knees. Pain. Ignored. He was already moving. Up. He pulled her to her feet. Above them. Shouting. They jumped. "Go. Go." No time. Daniel grabbed her hand and ran. The alley stretched ahead. Tight walls, scattered trash, barely lit. Perfect. They moved fast, footsteps echoing. Emily struggled to keep up, but she didn't let go. Didn't fall behind. Adrenaline carried her. Behind them. More footsteps. Dropping down. They were coming. "Dad," she gasped. "I can't." "You can," he said firmly. "Just a little more." He scanned ahead. A turn. Left. He took it without slowing. Then another. Then another. Not random. Deliberate. Breaking line of sight. Forcing them to guess. Forcing mistakes. Daniel slowed slightly, listening. Footsteps still there. But scattered now. Good. They were losing formation. Emily stumbled again. This time harder. Daniel caught her, but didn't stop completely. "Stay with me," he said, softer now. "You're doing good." She nodded, breathing hard. "I'm trying." "I know." They reached the end of the alley. A street. Empty. For now. Daniel stopped for half a second, scanning both directions. Left. Open road. 2 exposed. Right. Parked cars. Shadows. Cover. He turned right. They moved quickly, staying close to the vehicles. Then, a sound. Engine. Approaching. Fast. Daniel's head snapped toward it. Headlights cut through the darkness. Too direct. Too intentional. "They found us," Emily whispered. Daniel didn't respond. He was already moving, pulling her between 2 parked cars, forcing them low, hidden. The vehicle sped past. Then, braked. Hard. Too hard. Daniel's eyes narrowed. That wasn't a patrol. That was a hunt. Doors slammed. Voices again. "They're here somewhere." Emily's grip tightened, fear rising again. But Daniel, he stayed still, silent, watching, waiting, because running blindly now would get them caught. And this wasn't about escaping anymore. This was about outlasting them, outthinking them, and making sure they never got close to her again. Daniel stayed completely still, not a breath wasted, not a single unnecessary movement. Beside him, Emily trembled, her back pressed against the cold metal of the car, her hand gripping his sleeve like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. The voices were getting closer. Spread out. They couldn't have gone far. Boots scraped against pavement. Doors slammed. Metal clicked. Weapons. Daniel's eyes moved slowly, tracking shadows between the parked cars. 3, maybe 4 men on this side. More likely circling. They weren't just chasing anymore. They were hunting. Emily leaned closer, her voice barely a whisper. "What do we do?" Daniel didn't answer immediately, because the answer wasn't simple. Running had bought them time, but time was running out. He leaned slightly, just enough to peek through the narrow gap between the cars. One man passed by, fast, careless, scanning too wide. Another followed, slower, more methodical. That one was a problem. Daniel pulled back into cover. "They're splitting patterns," he whispered. "One rushes. One watches." Emily swallowed. "Is that bad?" "It means they've done this before." Her grip tightened. Daniel felt it. And for a split second, he let himself feel something too. Not fear. Not doubt. Responsibility. Then it was gone. Replaced by focus. He glanced around quickly. Cars. Shadows. Limited exits. Then, he saw it. Across the street. A narrow service gate. half open, leading into another alley. Not obvious, not clean, but possible. He leaned closer to Emily. When I move, he said quietly, you stay right behind me. No stopping, no looking back. She nodded immediately. No hesitation this time. Good. Daniel waited, watched, listened. Footsteps moving away. A gap forming. Not perfect, but enough. He exhaled slowly. Then, he moved. Fast. Low. Controlled. Emily followed right behind him, matching his steps as best she could. They crossed between the cars. 1 second. 2. A voice snapped from behind. There. Too late. Daniel grabbed Emily's hand and sprinted. No more hiding. No more stealth. Just speed. Footsteps thundered behind them. Closer. Closing fast. Stop, someone shouted. Another voice. Take the shot. A gun raised. Daniel saw it in the reflection of a car window and reacted instantly. He pulled Emily down. A shot cracked through the air. Glass shattered above them. They hit the ground hard. Up. Daniel snapped. No pause. No hesitation. They were moving again. The gate. Right there. Daniel slammed into it, forcing it open wider as they pushed through into the next alley. Darker. Narrower. Better. But not safe. Behind them, the gate slammed open. They were still coming. Emily's breathing was ragged now. I can't. You can, Daniel said, firm. Just a little more. His voice wasn't harsh. It was steady. Grounding. She pushed forward. Step after step. Pain. Fear. Exhaustion. Ignored. At the end of the alley. Another street. Dim lights. Empty. For now. Daniel slowed just enough to think. Left. Too open. Right. More turns. More cover. He turned right. They ran again. Then, Daniel suddenly stopped. Emily nearly ran into him. What? He pulled her back instantly. A car sped past the intersection ahead. Too fast. Too deliberate. Another team. They were boxing them in. Emily's voice broke slightly. They're everywhere. Daniel's jaw tightened. Yes, they were. Which meant running wouldn't work forever. He looked around quickly. Then his eyes locked onto something. A construction site. Partially fenced. Dark inside. Unfinished structure. Multiple entry points. Multiple exits. Chaos. Perfect. This way, he said. They slipped through a gap in the fence, disappearing into the skeletal frame of the building. Inside, concrete pillars. Exposed wiring. Shadows everywhere. Daniel moved deeper, pulling Emily behind one of the support columns. They stopped. For the first time in minutes. Stillness. Emily bent slightly, hands on her knees, trying to catch her breath. I can't feel my legs. Daniel kept his eyes on the entrance. Listening. Tracking. Footsteps outside. Voices. But uncertain now. They lost the trail. For the moment, Daniel finally looked at her. Really looked. Her face pale. Eyes wide. Fear still there. But something else too. Trust. She looked at him like she finally understood who he was. Not the distant man. Not the stranger in her house. But the one person who came back for her. Dad, she whispered. This time, there was no distance in it. Daniel nodded once. You did good, he said quietly. Simple, but real. A beat. Then, his expression hardened again. Because this wasn't over. Not even close. He glanced toward the entrance, listening to the fading voices, calculating their next move. Because now, this wasn't just about escaping. This was about ending it. For good. The construction site felt like a temporary pause, not safety. Daniel knew the difference. Safety was controlled. This was borrowed time. He stood near the edge of the concrete pillar, eyes fixed on the entrance they had slipped through, listening to the fading voices outside. They went this way. No, check the other side. Spread out. Uncertainty. Good. But not for long. Emily leaned against the pillar, still catching her breath, her hands trembling slightly. They're not giving up, she whispered. Daniel didn't look at her right away. No, he said calmly. They won't. Because now, this wasn't about grabbing someone. This was about cleaning up a mistake. And they were the mistake. He scanned the structure quickly. Half-built floors, exposed stairwells, open beams, unfinished walls. Multiple levels. Multiple blind spots. Multiple ways to disappear. Or to trap someone. His eyes settled on a staircase leading up. Then another path, deeper into the lower level. 2 options. Go up. Risk exposure. Go down. Risk getting cornered. Emily noticed his hesitation. Which way? Daniel took a breath. then made his choice. Up. Higher ground. Better visibility. Better control. Stay close, he added. She nodded. No questions. They moved. Up the concrete stairs, footsteps soft but fast, echoing faintly in the hollow structure. At the second level, Daniel slowed, raising a hand slightly. Stop. He listened. Nothing immediate. But that didn't mean clear. He stepped forward carefully, scanning the open floor. Steel rods. Wooden planks. Shadows everywhere. A maze. Perfect. But then, a sound. Behind them. Not outside. Inside. Daniel turned instantly. Too late. A figure stepped out from behind a pillar. Gun raised. Don't move. Emily froze. Daniel didn't. He shifted slightly, positioning himself just enough between her and the weapon. The man smirked. Smart move coming up here, he said. Less places to run. Daniel's eyes flicked briefly. Left, right, calculating distance. 10 feet. Too far to rush clean. Too close to ignore. Another voice echoed from below. They're inside. More coming. Time collapsing. The man with the gun tilted his head slightly. End of the line. Emily's fingers tightened around Daniel's sleeve. Daniel didn't look at her, but he felt it. And that was enough. He spoke, calm, steady. You don't want to do this. The man laughed. I think I do. Daniel nodded slightly, as if accepting that. Then, he moved. Not forward. Not back. Sideways. Sharp. Unexpected. The man reacted. Too slow. Daniel grabbed a loose plank from the ground and hurled it. Not at the man. At the light above. Glass shattered. Darkness swallowed the space. A gunshot fired. Wild. Missed. Daniel closed the distance instantly. 1 step. 2. Impact. His shoulder slammed into the man's chest, knocking him off balance. The gun shifted. Daniel grabbed his wrist, twisting hard. The weapon dropped. They struggled. Close. Brutal. No space. No room for mistakes. The man swung. Daniel blocked, drove his elbow into the man's throat. A choke. A collapse. The body hit the ground. Silent. Emily gasped. Dad, stay down, Daniel said quickly. Footsteps now, on the stairs. Coming up. Fast. Daniel grabbed the dropped weapon, checked it. Loaded. He didn't like guns. But right now, he wasn't choosing. He turned toward the staircase. 2 figures appeared at the top, and froze. Seeing him. Seeing the gun. For a split second, no one moved. Then, Daniel fired. 1 shot. Controlled. Not to kill. To stop. The first man dropped back instantly. The second ducked, retreating down the stairs. Chaos below. Shouting. Confusion. Daniel didn't chase. Didn't waste it. Instead, he turned to Emily. We move now. She nodded, adrenaline overriding exhaustion. They ran across the second level, toward the far side. Daniel spotted it. A partially built exit. Scaffolding leading down. Risky. Unstable. But open. Behind them. More footsteps. More voices. They're upstairs. Go. Go. Daniel reached the edge, testing the structure quickly. It held. Barely. He looked at Emily. Careful. 1 step at a time. She nodded, stepping onto it. Slow. Focused. Daniel stayed right behind her, one hand ready to catch if she slipped. Below. Freedom. Or at least, another chance. Halfway down. The structure creaked. Loud. Too loud. Emily froze. Don't stop, Daniel said firmly. She moved again. Step by step. Behind them. Figures appeared at the edge above. Too close. Faster. They descended the last few steps. And hit the ground. Daniel grabbed her hand. And they ran again. Out of the construction site. Back into the night. But this time, different. Because now, Daniel wasn't just escaping. He was pushing them. Forcing mistakes. Turning the hunt. Around. And for the first time, they weren't just running. They were winning. They didn't stop running until the noise behind them started to fade. Not disappear. Just fade enough to breathe. Daniel finally slowed near the edge of another dimly lit street, pulling Emily into the shadow of a closed storefront. His hand stayed firm on her shoulder, steadying her as she leaned against the wall, gasping for air. Her entire body was shaking now, not just from exhaustion, but from everything that had finally caught up to her. They're still coming, she managed between breaths. Daniel glanced down the street. Empty. For now. They will, he said calmly. But not like before. She looked up at him, confused. What do you mean? Daniel's eyes were different now. Colder. Sharper. They're not chasing us anymore, he said. They're reacting. Emily frowned slightly, trying to process. They're making mistakes. A beat. And that's when they lose. For the first time since this started, Emily saw it. This wasn't just her father helping her escape. This was something else. Someone else. Someone who had been in situations like this before. And survived. Daniel stepped away from the wall slightly, scanning their surroundings again. Streetlights flickering. Closed shops. Minimal traffic. No immediate movement. But that didn't mean safe. It never meant safe. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the phone he had taken earlier from one of the men. Unlocked it again. This time, he wasn't just scrolling. He was studying. Patterns. Contacts. Recent calls. Then, he found it. A group thread. Multiple numbers. One labeled. Pickup confirmed. Another. Transfer point ready. And then, a final message. Recent. Too recent. If compromised, move asset to secondary location. Daniel's jaw tightened. Emily saw it. What is it? He showed her the screen. Her face drained of color. Asset, she whispered. That's you, Daniel said. The word hung in the air. Heavy. Real. Emily shook her head slightly, like she was trying to reject it. I'm not. I know, he said softer now. But to them you are. A pause. Then, her voice broke. Why me? Daniel didn't answer right away. Because he already knew. And he didn't like it. Not one bit. They knew who I was, he said finally. Emily froze. What? They didn't grab you by accident. The truth landed hard. You were a target. Silence. Emily's eyes filled, but she didn't cry. Not this time. Because now, it wasn't confusion. It was understanding. They used me to get to you, she said quietly. Daniel nodded once. Yes. A beat. Then her voice shifted. Different. Stronger. What do they want from you? Daniel locked the phone, slipping it back into his pocket. Doesn't matter. But it doesn't matter, he repeated. Because whatever it wasn't happening. Not anymore. He looked down the street again. Then back at her. We're not running anymore. Emily blinked. What? We end this. The words were calm, but absolute. She stared at him. Part of her still scared. Part of her still unsure. But another part. The part that had just seen him walk into a room full of men and take them down without hesitation. That part believed him. How? She asked quietly. Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his jacket again, pulled out the small tool pouch, checked it. Then, the weapon. One quick glance. Enough. He looked back at her. Do you trust me? The question hung between them. A question that had never really existed before. Because before tonight, she didn't. Not fully. Not really. But now, after everything, after what he had done, after what he risked, Emily nodded. Yes. No hesitation. No doubt. Daniel gave a small nod back. Good. Then he pointed down the street. There's a main road 2 blocks from here. Stay in the light. Don't stop. Don't talk to anyone. Her eyes widened slightly. You're not coming? I will, he said. Just not yet. Realization hit. You're going back. He didn't deny it. You can't, she said quickly. There's too many. I know. That's exactly why you can't go alone. Daniel stepped closer. Not harsh. Not distant. Just present. For the first time in a long time. I've been alone before, he said quietly. Then softer. But you won't be. A beat. Emily shook her head, fear rising again. I'm not leaving you. Daniel's expression didn't change. But his voice did. Stronger. Emily. She stopped. That tone. Different. Not distant. Not cold. Commanding. But protective. You get to safety, he said. That's how you help me. Silence. Tension. Then, slowly, she nodded. Because deep down, she knew. He wasn't asking. He was making sure she lived. Daniel watched her for a second longer. Memorizing. Making sure. Then he stepped back. Turning away. Back toward the darkness. Back toward the people hunting them. Because now, it wasn't about escape anymore. It was about finishing it. And this time, they weren't hunting his daughter. They were walking straight into him. Daniel didn't rush back in. Not this time. He walked. Calm. Steady. Controlled. The noise of the city faded behind him as he moved toward the construction site again. Toward the men who thought they were in control. But everything had changed. Because now, they were exposed. Daniel stopped just outside the perimeter, watching. 2 vehicles still there. One man pacing near the entrance. Another on the phone, agitated. Good. Cracks in the system. Fear spreading. He stepped out of the shadows. No more hiding. No more running. The man at the entrance saw him first. His eyes widened. Hey, too late. Daniel closed the distance in seconds. One strike. Clean. Silent. The man dropped before he could finish the warning. The second turned. Reaching, Daniel fired once. Precise. The weapon fell from the man's hand as he collapsed. Silence returned. But not for long. Voices inside. Shouting. They're here again. Daniel moved forward. Through the entrance. Back into the building. This time, not as prey, but as the storm. Inside, chaos had replaced control. Men moving fast, but not coordinated. Not calm. Not prepared. Daniel used it. Every step deliberate. Every movement efficient. One man rushed him. Daniel stepped aside, redirected, dropped him. Another tried to flank. Too slow. Too predictable. Daniel disarmed him and drove him into the wall. Hard. The fight didn't last long. Because it wasn't a fight. It was a collapse. A system breaking under pressure. Within minutes. It was over. Bodies on the ground. Groans. Silence. Daniel stood in the center of it, breathing steady. Scanning. Confirming. No more threats. Then, sirens. Real ones this time. Coordinated. Closing in fast. Daniel didn't move. Didn't run. Because this part. He didn't need to control. Lights flooded the building. Voices shouted. Police. Hands where we can see them. Daniel slowly raised his hands. Calm. Composed. A shadow stepping out of the chaos. Minutes later. Outside. Flashing lights. Officers moving everywhere. Paramedics. Questions. Noise. But Daniel stood apart from it. Still. Quiet. Until. Dad. He turned. Emily. Running toward him. Safe. Alive. She didn't stop. Didn't hesitate. She wrapped her arms around him tightly. For the first time in years. And this time, he didn't stand still. He held her back. Firm. Protective. Real. I thought. Her voice broke. I thought I lost you. You didn't, he said quietly. A beat. Then softer. I'm right here. She pulled back slightly, looking up at him. Tears in her eyes. But something else too. Understanding. I was wrong, she said. About you, about everything. Daniel shook his head. No, he said. You just didn't know. Silence. Then, she nodded. And this time, there was no distance between them. Just truth. Just connection. Just a father and his daughter. Finally seeing each other. Weeks later, the house didn't feel empty anymore. The silence was still there. But it was different. Lighter. Warmer. Emily sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone. But this time, not lost in it. Present. Aware. Dinner's ready, Daniel said from the kitchen. She looked up immediately. Coming. A small moment. Simple. But everything had changed. She walked over, sitting across from him. Not distant. Not distracted. Just there. Hey, Dad. Daniel looked up. Yeah. She hesitated for a second, then smiled slightly. Thanks for not giving up on me. Daniel held her gaze, then nodded once. I never would. A quiet beat. Then, she reached across the table, just briefly, touching his hand. And this time, he didn't hesitate either. Because sometimes, it takes losing everything to finally realize who was there all along.